Call this meeting of New Iberia City Council to order. We have the prayer and the pledge led by Councilman David Merrill.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Councilmember Natalie Robin.
Present.
Councilmember Peggy Pratt.
Here.
Councilmember Robert Swear.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Dan Doyle.
Here.
Councilmember David Merrill.
Here.
Councilmember Raymond Lewis.
Present.
And Councilmember Calvin Bagner.
Here.
Mayor Curry, you have a quorum.
Thank you. The first agenda item is public comment, and I don't believe that we have anyone from the audience. Do we?
Yeah, we got one.
Yeah, so you.
But we can talk about it. We have Mr. Michael Bell, and he is from District 5, and he would like to speak concerning agenda item 5.
Right, the budget amendment.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't put that. Yeah, good afternoon, Mayor and council members. Mayor, I'm gonna make it short and brief. I'm here because to find out the ordinance amending, ordinance leveling taxes. I would just like to know one thing. If leveling taxes, can you somehow get the fund to renovate or to fix that swimming pool in the West End Park? I think I've heard there was rumors about building another. We have to also understand the cost of building another pool. I looked around that swimming pool. It means a lot to the people in the community. It's very important for the young people in the community. And I don't, if you don't know, if the people, the council don't know, during the Reagan and the Bush administration, which I admire that, they made an all-out effort to have pools refurbished and built in primarily black community, because a large amount of black kids drown because of the lack of knowing how to swim. So it's very important. It's not just something that's historically something that we should keep, but it's also for our children. You know, I myself as an adult, I used to like to go to a swimming pool. And we really need to consider doing something about that pool, and we need to know something. I know it's not all on you, Mayor. It's the council itself. It's everyone that's here that has a lot to do with it. But it's so important to refurbish or do that swimming pool, because if people don't know, that pool is newer than the City Park swimming pool. So it tells you that it was a lack of maintenance. Not putting the blame on nobody, because you got to remember, it's more than one person that runs this city. So in a sense, we all have to take the blame. You understand? And I'm making it my business, and I thank God that I'm able to speak for myself and speak to let you know it's an urgent cry that that swimming pool be refurbished. And Mayor, not only that, the city is too large for one. That's a major attraction, that swimming pool in the West End Park. And it shows a good reflection that we care. We care about our young people. Just keep in mind, like I said, during the Reagan and Bush administration, they made it a priority that they get these pools right in the inner city to teach these young kids. And I was told that not very long ago that you had people in the West End community that was willing to hire lifeguards to teach these young people how to swim. And what we also got to remember, a lot of people think when we're talking about the West End, we're talking just about black. The West End is diverse. You have a little bit of everything, you know. And I've always said what affects one part of the community, maybe not directly, but indirectly, it's going to eventually It works like a cancer. If you let it go untreated, it's gonna work the whole body. And that's the way a city, like I said, I had the good fortune to work with the city of San Francisco. We took slums area, and we're not talking about these people that don't want nothing. My mother and father always told me, you don't work, you shouldn't eat. You understand? And you're able to do it, we shouldn't have to carry you. But what I'm saying, these people are taxpayers, it is no more than right. And Mayor, I really hope we can come up with a solution to save that West End swimming pool, because it's gonna cost us a hell of a lot more money. Thank you, I'm cutting it off.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. The next agenda item is agenda item 2, which is acceptance of the minutes of the December 16th, 24th meeting as published on December 26th, 2014. A motion, who made it? I'm sorry. Motion by Mr. Bagno, second by Mr. Doyle. Is there any discussion? Yes, sir.
Mayor, there was actually no meeting,
On
so I don't know, on December,
December 16th, there was
There was
a meeting.
a
okay,
meeting.
okay, all right,
It was January
I'm
6th.
sorry,
It's the next one.
all right.
Anyone else? Any objection? No objection, motion carries. The next agenda item is acceptance of the minutes of the January 6th meeting as published on January 15th, 2015.
Mayor, I
We have a
would,
motion.
I would suggest that someone amend that to put scheduled before the word meeting. because
Okay.
Technically, it was a non-meeting.
Right,
But
exactly.
Okay, minutes of the scheduled, we'll have to do a,
Just change the minutes to where you can put scheduled.
Schedule.
okay. Okay. Do you have a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Lewis.
No, Mr. Merrill.
I'll
I'm
second
sorry, I
with
couldn't.
the
Second by
amendment.
Mr. Lewis. I can't hear where it's coming from. Is there any objection? No objection, motion carries. The next agenda item is a person to address the council, and it's Mr. Justin Shaw from Fence to Make and Associates, and he is going to speak to us concerning adjustments to the flood maps.
Mayor, I got a question.
Yes, sir.
On presentations, usually that's for information purposes, but,
Correct.
do they have a limit in time,
It's 15 minutes.
for 15 minutes for them and five?
Isn't it normally
It's
15?
about 15
15
minutes.
minutes.
We
Oh.
usually
We
try
try to
to
Okay,
keep it
because-
to about
what the
15
presentation.
minutes.
Because my only concern is he's coming to show us these new additions, but then we do some of this in 2000, a couple of years back.
Yes, sir.
So my thing is.
These
you
are
should-
adjustments to the
Oh,
maps.
adjustments.
Yeah,
Adjustments.
Okay.
adjustments to what we did. then.
The original was a study we did to look at drainage improvements along T-Bayou, and this is looking at flood zone and BFE determination along T-Bayou. So it's part of the same study, it's just a continuation of it. See if I can make this a little bit better to look at. Also brought some paper maps, because they're kind of funner to look at, and you can actually put your fingers on stuff. Okay. So my name is Justin Shaw. Y'all may remember me. I came in, I want to say it was 2010, 2011 when we started this study with Vince, looking at T-Bayou. And really what started this was there were some storm events along T-Bayou, and they were about, I want to say, 5 to 7 inches, and folks were starting to get water in their houses because of it. And that's much less than a 100-year storm. So just for a reference point, a 100-year storm in South Louisiana is 12 and a half inches of rain over a 24-hour period. And so these people were getting, 5, 6, 7 inches of rain in that time period, and water was entering their homes. And we're trying to figure out ways that we could reduce flooding, that we could help some people out. And so the original study was, we went out there, we looked at what was occurring, and we looked at ways to improve the situation. And one of the big things that came out of it was channel cleaning, which was removing of vegetation along the channel banks and removal of debris within the channel to let T-Bayou drain out a little bit quicker. And I think that was a pretty successful endeavor. I think that helped out a lot. But these two storm events, well, the first one is what spurred the first study. In 2006, there was 5 inches of rain, and you can see flooding along some of these areas. And we got these photos on the top end from a fire chief in the area, and it gave us a reason to go out there, and we were able to calibrate and look at everything. And then in July of last year, there was about 4.5 inches. And you can see that middle picture, that's Emile Verret. And so that, when we started talking with Miss Carmen in this area, looking at base flood elevations and flood zones, this spurred that part of it. And so when talking with Miss Carmen, we're looking at ways to map what's going on outside of Emile Verret, to put BFEs, because that's a zone A. And a zone A is just an approximate flood zone. So we know it floods there, but it hadn't been studied in detail. So we don't have base flood elevations. We don't know exactly where those limits of flooding are until it's studied. So our original work dropped into this work so we could do that. And so now we go to the meat of it, the good stuff. So what you see on top is the existing flood zones and BFEs. You can see all of those are to the west of Emile Verret into the city of New Iberia. And so what we went and did was we used our original work, our previous work, and we just built on that. On the bottom, the orange color, that's the flood zones. The dark red, that's the floodway, which is tight around the channel. And then the yellow, you can see it a little bit, that's the X500. Those are areas that would flood in a 500-year storm event, which is roughly 16 to 17 inches in a 24-hour period. So that's a big old storm. And you see the black lines running kind of vertically along T-Bayou. Those are the base flood elevations that we put together throughout the whole area. So it goes almost back to Lake Dautrive, Lake Fossey Point area over there. The lightish tan color you see on the right of the bottom screen and throughout the majority of the top screen, those are zone A's. That's the approximate zone I was talking about. And now my next slide is a zoomed in area. And by the way, if y'all have questions, yell at me, throw something at me, whatever. So what we're looking at here, these are the flood zones within the city of New Iberia. And they don't show up real well here. If you want to take a look at the paper maps, I can show you. But you can see, because replacing the culverts at Emile Verret with a con span, because of channel cleaning, the flood or the BFEs reduced just a little bit. And you can slightly see on the bottom, you see that first BFE, it's a 14. It's a first black line coming from the left side of the page. That is where the 14-foot BFE is. If you look at the top one, the second line is a 14-foot. So we move that 14-foot a little bit further to the west, which means that the water surface elevation is a little bit lower. And so you can see that graphically in the flood zones, in the orange flood zones in this area. So they've shrunk down a little bit. And so this is what we're going to present to FEMA. The thing that we are working on right now is we have very jagged lines. It hasn't been smoothed. So our initial submittal would be these jagged lines because that's a true representation. FEMA likes their flood zones to be smoothed out, so we may have to smooth them for them to accept it. But we'd like to put it in just to see if they accept it. If they don't, we can smooth them and resubmit. So they may change a little bit from this, but it won't be a drastic change. There are areas, the majority of the areas within the city were removed. There are areas downstream that were put in, and there are some areas around here that were zone A's and zone X's out of the flood zone are now in zone AEs. And the reason that is because they were by a zone A, an approximate area, which wasn't studied in detail. Yes, sir.
Question. How long it is before FEMA has to accept those coordinations? The smoothing out?
In a perfect world, it'd be a matter of months. We've dealt with one right now in particular in Lafayette Parish that's taken upwards of 18 months, but that was kind of a unique situation.
Is it a deadline or something, or what?
It's not necessarily a deadline. We submit it to them, they review it, and usually they give us comments, revise this, change this panel number, so we change those. And then once they're good with everything, it goes on the Federal Register, and depending on what's in there is how long it ends up taking. So when we first submitted for the stuff in Lafayette Parish, it was held up by the government slowdown, and that was a big impediment. I don't think that's going to happen again, but I would imagine it's on the order of 6 months, something in that range, but I'd be really happy with 3 to 4 months.
Well, the reason I was asking, because I know later on during the year when storm season really kicks off.
Mhm.
That's what I was wondering, if you had to be able to have those elevations taken care of before that. That's what I was asking.
And this is considered best available data, so it can be used by the city and the parish to enforce flood zones, to look at flood areas. So it can be used, it just won't be on the FEMA website until it is approved and deemed effective by FEMA.
Okay. Thank you.
We have,
I have
oh,
a
yes, sir.
question. I know when you came here a couple of years ago, they had some solutions. One was to clean out the canal, do
Mhm.
things such as that. How far did they go? Did they go to the lake?
They didn't go all the way to the lake, and the reason is that as you move away from the city and go further to the lake, your impacts upstream are less. And so we looked at cleaning from the hospital down to about Far Canal,
Okay.
and then we looked at cleaning from the hospital all the way down to the mouth of T Bayou. And the differences, really the differences to the west of Far Canal were minimal in that area. And it's the same with dredging out at the mouth. So it gets shallow when you leave T Bayou. But we saw that if you dredged out down in that area, you don't get much impact as you get closer. By the time you get to Far Canal, there's no difference. So we looked at leaving it silted in, and then we looked at dredging it down, I want to say 6 feet. And that change by the time you reach Far Canal was almost non-existent.
Because I know a bunch of residents that had houses on the north side of T Bayou. They became, some of them in the floodway, some in the flood zone, and they went ahead and had to get flood insurance or get their house,
Elevated.
no, not elevated, get it, to get the elevation for their house from an
Elevation
engineer, a
certificate.
certificate.
Yes, sir.
To see what kind of insurance, and some of them had to pay more insurance. So you're saying after this data is sent to them, they may not, some houses be out of that floodway or flood zone?
Yes, some houses may be out, and I would imagine some of those houses that were put in may come out. However, there are houses that are out that have been put in. So there's never a like a 100% great
But
plan.
that will, after it's proved through, at that point, the public will know
Yes.
where they stand in there.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
One of the good things, and I'm not up to date on my insurance, so please correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I understand, insurance rates are higher in a zone A. However, if you're in a zone AE and you're above the base flood elevation, they are lower
Lower.
because they know the elevation, or you know the elevation. A lot of these places that were put in, and I'll show you on this next map actually, this is a depth map. So a lot of these places are put in, you end up having 4-6 inches of water in a 100-year storm. And usually when you do construction, especially in Louisiana, you don't dig out to place your home on a slab. You usually put a little bit of fill, put the slab up, and you're built up a little bit higher. So a lot of these places, more than likely, a lot of these homes are going to be out of the flood zone, or they're going to be above the base flood elevation, and so they won't require flood insurance. However, after seeing the big storm event in Karen Crow and some of the storm events throughout the South, I would always recommend flood insurance, even if you're out of a flood zone, just in case. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Mr. Justin, approximately how many homes is in the flood zone and get flooded? You know, roughly?
I don't know offhand, but if there's a GIS file showing the homes, that's something I can find out relatively quickly. But no, ma'am, I'm not sure exactly the statistics on the homes within the flood zone.
So, okay, this study would exempt all the houses from flooding again in that area?
It wouldn't exempt them from flooding, but it would let folks know if you're in a flood zone and then how high you need to build up to be safe. It's one of those studies where, or it's one of those situations where if you let it go longer and more people build, you run the risk of more people being built below the BFE, below the base flood elevation. And so it is, from a drainage point of view, it's always nice to know what your base flood elevations are, to know where that level of protection is.
So if the resident, the owner, don't elevate the house above the flood zone, will they get insurance if the house flood, or would it not be covered?
If your house is below the base flood elevation and you're in the flood zone, your insurance will be more expensive. You can still get it, but I'm not sure what the expense on that would be. Yeah, the rates are going to be higher. but they should, a lot of these people should be close to the base flood elevation or above it, is my thought. And the reason I'm thinking that is because a lot of this area that we're including is not heavy residential. It's more agriculture land, open land. And a lot of the people that have built out here, at least the ones I've taken a look at, typically build on a higher level because they have so much space. Most people find a high spot in their property to build on. That's not true all the time, but usually it's true.
Yeah, thank you.
Justin,
Yes, sir.
when you were talking about the, some homes will now be in the flood zone that were not in before, was that?
Yes, sir.
Within the city limits, or was that a little further down? It looked like expanded as
That's-
you go down.
Yeah, that's mostly
Mostly-
further down. If you'll see
Past the, Verot,
Emile
Emile
Barrett.
Verret?
Yes, sir. Most of those are down past Far Canal
Okay.
and Darnell Road, Crochet Road, down that way. Let me zoom in. I don't believe there are many homes included within the city of New Iberia because I believe the city limits go right up to Emile Verret. in
It's
that area.
right before that, actually, Evergreen.
So within the city, I don't believe that there are many homes, if any, that are included because I think the flood zone in that whole area looks like it decreases.
It may have decreased some.
'Cause
Okay.
before it
And
used
that
to
was,
go
that was the, because
almost halfway
it came,
down
well, up to
Evergreen
my
and-
street, it came, and on Astor Place, it stopped right before my house.
Yeah.
And I think this will impact where it'll shrink it to where not so many homes are in there. But I was concerned when you said some will be impacted, I was figuring it was more down, okay.
It is, and really the impact zone is that zone A that was unstudied. However, there is a portion just upstream to the west of Emile Verret where the floodway increases. And no matter what I tried, I could not get that to shrink down. And just for reference, the floodway, it's a regulatory tool, and it's basically the area if you take your flood zone and you keep smashing it down with water in it, it raises the water a foot. And it's a way to more easily regulate the flood zone, so you don't have to ask for a no-rise certificate for every home that goes in the floodway. You only ask for it within within the flood zone. You only ask for it within the floodway.
So the worst is being in a floodway, and then it's a flood zone, and then after, what was the other one you mentioned?
Those are really the two regulations that FEMA
Oh.
imposed. The floodway is more regulatory. So say I want to go build a house right in that red zone. I would have to look for an engineer to produce a no-rise certificate. By the way, if anybody's looking, we do no rises. But there are several firms in Lafayette Parish. I can also give you the number and the firm, they do them as well. But what you do is you go and you need to show that you cause no impact to your neighbors. Basically, you don't raise the water surface elevation so they flood. That way it takes the liability off the person who's building a home. And so I would get the engineer, he would look at it, study it, say, okay, if you build this house and you put a small pond in, here's your no rise, you're good to go. If you build within the flood zone, the zone AE, you just have to build above the base flood elevation, and typically it's a foot above the base flood elevation, which I believe is enforced throughout the parish.
And
here.
what is that elevation now?
It fluctuates. The highest elevations we have on Emile Verret the highest elevations we have on T-Bayou are 14 feet. And then as you go further to the east, they drop down to, I want to say 8 or 9. I want to say 9.
So 14 is the max?
Yes, sir.
that we have
14 is the
in that
max.
area?
So 14 and then plus a foot. And so that brings up the finished floor elevation
That's
to
15.
15 feet. And that is right around Dotrieve Hospital.
Jim, excuse me.
Oh.
When we're talking about new homes being built and ask for permits, aren't they supposed to be built at a certain level at a BFE or somewhere?
1 foot above the BFE.
1 foot above, so that would help, that would answer Ms. Chirag's
Passed
question.
an ordinance.
Yeah.
When you build it.
City
Yes, I
ordinance.
thought it was 1 foot above. Okay, that answers, thank you.
Yeah, everything built within the city, if it's been built in the last 10 years, it's gonna be acceptable to these
Yeah,
maps.
okay.
I don't see any issue with that.
Excuse me, can I go a
Yes, ma'am.
little bit off the box? What I wanted to ask you is it's not directly in that area, but I'm asking quick. If your house has been elevated, let's say to 3 feet, should you have to continue on paying this,
if you're 3 feet like above the flood elevation, if you're 3 feet, you don't have to pay. I would recommend it, but your premium should be much less.
That's what I want, though, 'cause
Yeah.
I raised my house about, 3 feet, about maybe, right at 10 years ago, 10 years ago.
Yeah,
And that's why I'm asking the question, I'm gonna talk to my agents.
yeah. I would
Thank you.
check with them because I've seen insurance companies have somewhat different regulations where some will get you if you're just within the flood zone, some will get you when you're within 100 feet of the flood zone. So I'm not sure. I think you can call around. I think it's all funded through FEMA, but I think different insurance companies
Okay.
enforce that differently.
Yeah,
At
okay.
least as somebody who rents, I haven't had to go through, but that's just what I've heard.
Okay, thank you, because I have a lot of constituent houses that's higher. So
Mhm.
maybe they all, I'm saying it for them to hear, need to check with the agency. They could have a slight reduction in their premium. Am I correct?
I would
Maybe.
think it's a good thing to check.
Okay,
Yes,
thank you
ma'am.
very much.
Oh yeah, and this is the depth map showing flooding, by the way. Everything in red is below 6 inches, and orange is a foot to 6 inches. And then as you get to the cold colors, the greens and the blues, that's a deeper depth of flooding during the 100-year storm event. And I like this because it gives you a good visual. If you see 5 feet of flooding, you know that's 5 foot of water on the ground, and it makes sense. At least to me, that visually makes a lot more sense than the elevations from the previous plot. You can see a lot of the flooding within the city is within that 6 inches to a foot range in a 100-year storm. And I believe that is the final slide. Yes. Are there any more questions on that?
Does anyone have questions?
One more
Mr.
question. You were
Dolan?
talking about straightening the lines. You mean that if, it can't, go down one block, come back in half of another block? You mean straighten up the lines on the flood, way?
Floodway?
Yeah.
Are you talking about
Like
how?
this, you was talking about how the lines would have to be more straightened for them to accept it, maybe.
Yeah, so when we're doing this, when I do it, I use LiDAR elevation, which gives an average elevation on a 5-foot grid, so you end up with a bunch of squares throughout your map. And when I pull out the water surface elevation, it follows those squares. So looking at this, my flood extents have 90-degree curves like this. And a lot of times FEMA likes them smooth.
That's,
And so I'm gonna try to put them in this way because this is a more accurate representation. But if they want to smooth it, that's fine too. I just go through and I basically kind of put a little smoothing routine on it. And it's an automated process in
I got you.
GIS. But I like this, especially with the GIS and the software capabilities we have now. You can zoom in to a house, where the old maps, you just got a paper map.
right.
And so I like it being as detailed as I can get it.
Thank you.
Yes.
Anyone else has any questions? Thank you very much for
Yes, ma'am.
coming, we appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am. And if y'all have any questions, feel free to call Jimmy and get in touch with me, whatever, and I'll do my best to answer 'em.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
The next agenda item is agenda item 4, and it's appointment. We have 2 appointments we'll vote on separately. They're for the New Iberia Historic District. Mr. Paul Shake Snyder, Downtown Merchants Association, replaces Mr. Paul Schwing, and Mr. Willis Kingston Barato, Iberia Convention and Visitors Bureau, New Iberia Historic District, to replace Mr. John Albert Landry. And both Mr. Swing and Mr. Landry will remain honorary members on that board. The first one, I'd like a motion
Motion.
and a second from Mr. Paul Shake Snyder.
Motion.
A motion by Mr. Lewis and a second by Mr. Bagno. Is there any discussion?
Mayor, approximately how many members on that board, historical board?
Jane wasn't here this evening, and I'm not sure.
And
Maybe 5 or 6.
I want to know if the West End have anybody on the board representing.
I'm sure she must have somebody. I don't have the names of the board with me.
You don't?
I have them in my office. Yeah, we can call you tomorrow.
Yeah,
Get
can
a-
I get a copy of, I may forget to call
Make a
because I'll
note.
be running busy.
We'll make a note to
don't.
send you a
Make-
list of the board members, and
please.
I don't remember. That's 5 or 6 board members.
Okay, I know it was about 6.
And I
Okay.
can't remember off the top of my head who's on that board.
Okay, because if not, I'd like to be assured that someone will be place to represent the historical district of the West End.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so we have Mr. Paul Shakespeare. Is there any objection? No objection, motion carries. The next is Mr. Willis Kingston Barato. Do we have a motion?
Make a motion.
Motion by Mr. Bagno.
Second.
Second, is
By
it
Mr.
Mr. Lewis? Any discussion? Yes.
I just have a quick question. I noticed on the application that, he checked off that he's not a resident of the city. Does that matter?
No, I think he said.
Lives in Iberia Parish.
I'm just,
Was that,
He actually lives in my district, but he's carved out. His house is carved out. He's on Laurelville Road.
I
Yeah.
just didn't know if it mattered. 'Cause
I would imagine Jane wouldn't have put it in if not registered in Iberia.
He's not resident of the city.
But,
It is a
yeah.
parish.
I think so, yeah.
Just as long as that is clear, I wanted to ask for clarification purposes.
Because several years ago, there were someone on the
Jane
board.
submitted the names, and I'm just assuming that they meet the
It's a questionable
requirements.
thing.
Right.
Is
If-
that one of the requirements, they have to live in the city?
I'm thinking that if not,
I'm
no,
thinking-
I'm thinking it's not if Jane
Okay.
submitted the names.
Okay.
The reason why I'm asking, because I think the question came up some time ago, and they said you have to represent by district, and you have to be a city of, a resident of the city.
I'm not sure what the
So,
historic district
Maybe we
requirements
need
are.
to check on that. That's been quite some time.
Mr. Lewis,
I want to withdraw my second. I really need that cleared up.
Yes.
okay, do y'all want to?
Because, I mean, maybe somebody else will offer a second, but,
I'm not trying to start something.
No.
I just noticed it and I was like,
Right.
well, I don't
good
know the
question.
requirements.
Jane's normally here, she wasn't feeling well, and she went home. She
I
would've
do
been here
appreciate him
today.
wanting to
But
serve,
what we
definitely.
can do y'all want to,
Can we-
delay this till the next meeting?
Yeah.
I have
if,
a-
if,
Cause Mayor, I had,
What about Mr. Shake Snyder?
He's
Do
out
y'all-
there.
No,
That's
he's-
fine,
y'all
he's in the
okay?
city.
All right, we'll leave Mr. Shake Snyder, and, let's do a motion to
defer.
defer to
To
the
the-
next meeting. A motion by Mr. Lewis, and a
Second.
second by Ms. Roban to defer the second appointment, to the next council meeting, and we'll get that information for
Go
Jane.
ahead.
Ask her, I'll get the list of board members and
Yeah, that's a
West
question I had
End
too.
and City. Okay,
Mayor,
Can I
thank
get
y'all.
one of those emailed to me as well? Cause I wanted to know who represents the historic side of the West End as well myself.
Sure. Did you make a note? Okay.
And Mayor,
Thank you.
tell the gentleman, it's nothing,
Nothing
but
about him
I
personally.
just don't wanna, cause I know, you
Sure,
know.
not a problem.
Yeah, it's nothing.
Not a problem. Okay, the next agenda item is a budget amendment. Madam Clerk, an ordinance.
An ordinance amending the ordinance levying certain taxes, appropriating the funds necessary to defray the expenses and liabilities of the city of New Iberia for the year 2014-2015.
And Ms. Segura is here if you have any questions.
Make a motion.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Make a
We need a
motion.
motion by Mr. Bagno, a second by Mr. Doyle. And we'll have the discussion and then vote on it. The first, I guess you could just go through it and explain it to him. It's not that much.
The budget adjustment that's presented in your packet is to amend two separate funds. First is the general fund, and it's for the fire department. In last year's budget, we had appropriated some money to purchase bunker gear, and the timing of that purchase, they requested a requisition at the very, very end of the fiscal year. We still haven't even taken delivery of the bunker gear. So we're requesting to move that money into the current fiscal year, because we weren't able to complete the purchase before the end of before last year's fiscal year end. And it's basically the same thing on the sewage fund. All of those station repairs and equipment repairs, a similar type situation. We weren't able to complete all of the obligations before the end of last fiscal year, so we're just requesting to defer that into this fiscal year.
Any questions?
Mayor,
Go ahead, Mr. Doyle.
Mr. Doyle?
I want to thank you, Kim, I was supposed to call you back. I did request, because I thought it was strange that we were amending budget for $9,000 more, and we already had $25,000 for,
Right.
for this year. And a chief explained to me what it was, so, but I appreciate it. I just didn't have time to get back. Thank you for getting that.
You're welcome.
I had a question too.
Well, let me get Mr. Lewis was next, and then I'll get you, Mr.
Mayor, it's not really a question, but we had someone to pose something during our public comment session. under agenda item 5, with the, pool and, the situation in Western Pool. I would like to comment on that because, I think first, with the pool, at West End, both our pools are old and antiquated. My brother is 71 years old. But I talked to him kind of in depth about that last year. Last year, I think I mentioned to the council at that time. He was swimming in the pool in 1959, and I'm assuming he was about 15 years old. He come from downtown and swimming in the pool. And my only concern when we start talking about the pool is number one, we'd have to get what's actually going on. Yeah, I'm assuming when that pool was built, it was with, Ms. Sewell, maybe you can help me with iron piping underneath. It wasn't PVC that they use today. I'm sure with the chemicals that flowed through it and exited the system, it's corroded, because they probably use iron pipe as with homes, they use the clay pipe, and now you find yourself having to go to PVC. So when we get into discussion, Mr. Bell, with the pool, I'd like to have it assessed to tell us what this thing here was made of. I know when I was working in the park in the 90s, they always had trouble with the pumping, the filter and pumping system, pumping and filtering system in the back. Now, it's been how many years? 56 years, according to from 59 to my brother's age now, 71. It's been 56 years for him. And I would just like to kind of know what's going on, because it may be more feasible to tear that down, demolish it, and possibly build another one. But at some point, I kind of like to know what's the status, as well as City Park, because it's old as well, with them old pipes that chlorine and Clorox, whatever they use to filter the germs or try to filter the germs out. It's old and corroded. They antiquated both pools, but I'd like to see what would be best suitable to do with both pools. Personally, myself, I thought it would be better for us in the conditions of both pools to team and partner with parish government and the school board. Why the school board? Because the school board is the richest recipient of the taxpayers' money. We do bond, we do all kind of things so why couldn't we team up and make just one community?
And this is probably all for another day.
Yes.
I have spoken to Mr. Henderson about that 2 years ago. Last year, they said that they had already committed all the money that they had for that particular year. I can talk to them about it again. They have not been real receptive.
I know. Maybe we need to
And
approach the school
we will be
board.
having a budget meeting. I think we said the beginning of March, because Kimberly's still waiting to close out some, is that correct?
Either February or March.
Either February or March. And at that time, I think we can discuss further in further detail some of these items. We do have budget issues also
Right.
that we need to
Right, I
address.
realize
So, you know,
But,
yes,
but,
ma'am.
Your brother 71, but I'm a little older than him,
Yes,
and
ma'am.
that pool was there. And the mayor, I've spoke to them, numerous times about the pool. And the mayor was supposed to be getting with Dale Henderson
I
to
did.
see about doing an Olympic pool on the west end by the library, and possibly closing down that pool and put some kind of water, coming out of the ground where there's no liability. You don't need no lifeguard or anything. It would be a saving, to the city. It's very expensive to maintain, I think, 2 pools in this city. Then you got one at the Sugar Ring. It's very expensive. and I almost cried, and I spoke with our representative, all three of them. They're in favor of trying to do something about the pool. I also asked them to, put in for a $600,000 grant, which capital outlay, which I got, the thing had been approved, to help us with Western Park. I've been doing everything and anything that's feasible to asking them to take the leave out the pool, to drain it. I don't know what the problem, because I'm not mechanical informed by what you said, Mr. Lewis, and I'm quite sure it's true. Everybody says some true thing, because the pool is dilapidated, need to be diminished. But right now, the safety of these kids in this area is in my hand, because they may decide to cross that fence and jump in the water, and you don't know what's in that water. Because I looked at it one time and threw a big rock, and a black snake moved out. That was just the leaves in there. What I'm saying is to say that it's not that, Mr. Bell, nothing haven't been done to the pool, but discussion have been made, and right now I'm at the midst of, and Representative Landry, I think he applied for some funds for the pool.
Right. And if y'all don't mind, I'm not trying to be rude, but we are so off the subject. We're trying to.
I understand,
to do
but
the
it was
budget
brought
amendment.
up.
I will put that on our agenda when we
Yeah.
have our budget meeting. We can discuss both.
Please,
pools.
let it go, reflect in a
Um,
minute that we're going to
I
put this.
definitely will put it
yeah.
on the agenda for the budget meeting, but at this time, I think. we need
Okay,
to-
I thank you, just make sure it's on that. Okay.
Budget running
Thank
this year, Kim, the
Yeah.
new year,
Well, I only have,
sales tax wise,
sales tax wise, we're down.
how much?
The first month, we were up, I wanna say about 3%, and the second month, we were down about 10%.
Well, you know, looking at, just to comment on, you gave us this information prior to last year we were up those 2 months about 8%, and this year we're down about 8% for the same 2 months.
And
What?
we think there was some additional collections, weren't there last year?
There were
during
some
that
additional
time? There was some
collections.
additional
Katsugura had told me
collections.
that last year in that,
Yeah.
that November month, that there
November.
was some, there was about $50,000, extraordinary, money that came to the city. But,
One thing about it,
obviously, that's not in this year's.
December's sales are not in here.
Correct, we'll get that check, probably
And
February
I don't think
1st.
that's great.
But, at our budget meeting, we're gonna, hopefully we'll have the December numbers by that time, and we'll kinda get an idea of what things are, what direction we're going in. But, we can discuss it all at that budget meeting. We'll put this on the agenda about the pools.
Mayor,
Yeah, Mayor,
Okay, yes. I'm sorry, who was first?
all I want to comment on was what they was talking about, the pools and everything, and see if we can possibly look at, besides talking to Mr. Henderson, see if we can get some type of estimates on, without tearing the pool down, what would be possibly the most efficient way to maybe, get it up and running where, it can last for a few years until we might can afford to be able to redo the pool and come up with some other ideas. 'Cause one thing he did mention, the kids is the most important thing. We have a pool that we have running in City Park, and I know it's not all that great and effective, but, the transportation is the biggest part of it. We do have a sizable town, and you have a good distance of both pools to be going back and forth. And, I just wanna see if maybe we can look at getting some type of figures.
We'll check into it, and
See.
we'll have, at the budget meeting, we'll have more information.
Thank you.
Excuse me, I
Okay,
understood
could we
you say
vote?
we were out of bounds, out of the subject, but
Very.
yet we continue on, and I get cut off. I'm trying to be,
Mr. Rack, I didn't know what he was
Professional.
gonna speak
but
about,
I'm
you
saying,
had a chance.
wait, no, I'm not, don't disagree with what he said, because it needs to be discussed. You
We will,
understand?
but this is just not the appropriate time for us to discuss. the
But
pool.
why don't, I think the council realized what I'm
if
saying.
y'all wanna-
You cut me off, you said the discussion was out of range, and yet we continue on, we gotta.
Well, we
put
have a
our balance.
parliamentarian, Mr. DeQueer, are we out of order
No, he
here?
didn't say nothing.
I mean, I'm
Never
just, I'm
said
gonna
that.
defer to our parliamentarian.
No,
Are we,
Does anything, let me ask.
it's with tax money.
Yeah, is anything in this particular ordinance, are these funds dedicated? That you're talking about, the amendments?
fire department and wastewater,
Fire department and wastewater.
Could any of it be diverted to using on the pool?
no.
Well, then, we really can't discuss the pool with this particular money. That would be left to another day.
I'm just trying to run the meeting like a business meeting and continue to follow our agenda. If y'all wanna put the pool on another agenda and discuss it, we will, or at the budget meeting, but we're so off right now. This is,
The only thing I'm talking about, man, not being off, that you cut me off twice, but then we linger on with the same subject. That's what I'm saying. And I think it's to be discussed in the meeting.
Okay.
Because the listening public is noticing all of these things.
Sure,
They
Mr.
notice,
Wright.
and sometimes they call, why do they cut you and Mr. Swear off so much? But, we have a right to voice it, and you should have stopped me at the first time, not me. Mr. Lewis
well,
brought it
we
up.
gave you an opportunity to
So,
speak, Mr.
you're cutting me
Wright.
off though,
Well,
twice.
it's time to vote on this
Yeah.
amendment. I'd ask you to please
Run it
vote your
professionally
machines.
if you're gonna do it now.
Please vote your machines on the
Mayor,
amendment.
I like the floor. Because I need to clear up some.
Try to hold it, man.
The only reason I brought it up was because
Good.
Mr. Bell was allowed to
That's right.
go on the agenda 5.
And
think it was.
honestly,
Yeah, that's
he
the only
was
reason.
really out of order, but he
And
was
I know
here,
out of
and
respect.
out of respect, I allowed him
That's
to
right.
speak.
That's why
Okay.
we're talking.
Should've been stopped.
But I have a
But really,
final
this
budget.
pool's not on the agenda. We are
No.
so off of the agenda right now.
Mayor, again, I
Wait,
don't
just a
wanna
minute,
cut
Mr.
you
Lewis
off,
has the floor.
or Mr. Lewis.
Under the understanding this budget amendment, I would just say, I'm really appreciative that I did not support doing the 4% raise, and this council was fiscally responsible in doing the 2% raise. Thank you.
Right.
All right, is there any,
Just to further, these expenses were actually included in the projection that was prepared,
Yes.
so those expenses were taken into consideration. So the fund balance was actually stated as a lower amount.
Yes.
And so it's just gonna, it's basically just a zero.
Yes, ma'am, but we adopted a good budget, sound budget.
is there anyone else that has a comment concerning the budget
Okay.
amendment?
I don't have anything to say.
Then I would ask you to please vote your machines.
We voting just on the general fund?
Just, no, on the entire budget amendment, the entire budget amendment.
Okay.
Motion carries unanimously. The next agenda item is a resolution, Madam Clerk, agenda item 6.
A resolution to accept the systems survey and compliance questionnaire as submitted for the fiscal year 2014 and forward to the CPA firm of Coder, Champagne, Slavin and Company, auditors engaged by the city of New Iberia.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Swear.
Second.
I'm sorry,
Second by
was it
Mr. Merrill.
Mr. Merrill. Is there any discussion?
I have a correction.
Okay.
They don't have my right address.
Oh,
They have my workplace, not my home.
okay, she can correct it, we'll
I
correct
used the
it.
information that we had in the payroll system. I'll get it correct.
That's not where I vote.
Okay.
Okay, you correct it, Ms.
You want to correct it now while we voting on it, or does it matter?
Challenge your residents.
You know, everybody get ready.
Is there anything else that anyone? Okay, we'll vote on it with the change in, Mr. Doyle's address. Please vote your machines. Motion carries unanimously.
Oh, shit, I pressed the wrong thing, excuse me.
Agenda item 6B, Madam Clerk.
Resolution accepting the municipal water pollution prevention environmental audit report and setting action to maintain permit requirements. This is for the wastewater plant.
So moved.
Mr. Magno.
Now, a motion by Mr.
Second.
Bagno, and a second by, was it Mr.
Mr.
Merrill? Is there any discussion? Mr. Palumbo is here if you have any questions. This is a formality. We do these permits every year. Mr. Doyle?
Vince, there's a bunch of numbers that I don't understand, but it looks like, since the last time we did this, does this show anything better does that really matter? All the infrastructure you've been doing the last year, does it affect these reports?
No.
That's just at the plant itself?
Right, it's
Okay.
questions strictly
Okay.
about the plant and some of the improvements we've been doing. It's not a qualitative analysis of those improvements.
Okay, I just wondered.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, please, anybody else? Please vote your machines.
Yeah, thank you.
Motion carries unanimously. The next agenda item is 6C, Madam Clerk.
A resolution accepting the municipal water pollution prevention environmental audit report and setting action to maintain permit requirements. And this is sewage district number 1.
Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Merrill, second by Mr. Bagnell. Is there any discussion? Please vote your machines. Motion carries
I want to say, Vince,
unanimously.
I'm still getting those reports, and I appreciate it, on the maintenance upkeep.
The next agenda item is 6D. Madam Clerk, a
A res-
resolution.
A resolution awarding bid to E.B. Fletch and Sons for the wastewater collection system rehabilitation project Basin D.
Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Mr. Bagnell,
Mr. Lewis.
second by Mr. Lewis. Is there any discussion?
I got a question again, I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Doyle?
Vince, when bids are involved, since I do a lot of them, they're always my concern. What was the budget of this project? Do you know? And if we came in budget or?
The budget was more than the low bid amount. The engineer's estimate is shown on the last page of that, the unit bid tab. Engineer's estimate of probable construction cost was $478,930. So we had at least that amount budgeted, if not more. And through some of those, the SRF loan that we received from DEQ is where those funds are coming from.
Now, this, Fetch and Sons, this company did plenty of work for the city in the past.
Yeah.
Yes,
Are they the ones that doing that on Lewis Street?
they are.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Does anything to do with the Henry Street project?
No, this
No.
is Basin D.
Basin D.
Right, this is Natalie's neck of the woods, Katie and Acres area.
Gotcha, okay.
I need someone to.
Okay, anyone else has any questions? Okay, I'd ask you to please vote your machines.
We'll vote your machine.
Motion carries unanimously. Oops, Mr. Lewis, you didn't vote.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Thank you.
Motion carries, thank you. The next agenda item is a resolution, Madam Clerk.
A resolution to dispense with the Tuesday, February 17, 2015 city council meeting due to the Mardi Gras holiday.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Lewis, second by Mr. Merrill. Is there any objections? No objection, motion carries. The next agenda item is property standards.
Might gonna be on a lot of people up here.
St. Jude.
Okay. We got,
The
we got,
first property is
This is-
1016 St. Jude, and we're setting it for public hearing on March 17th, 2015. Do you have any comments about the property? Wallace, do you have a motion?
I so moved.
It is a motion.
Second.
I'm
sorry.
We can just do them all together. We don't have to do them one by one. We just set.
Are we gonna set all of them? Okay, well, all right. Mr.,
Huh?
we need a motion and a second.
Second.
You-
So mo-
Right,
yeah, so
motion
moved.
and a second by Mr. Swear. Okay,
Mr. Radford, Mr. Swear.
right. Okay, 1016 St. Jude.
okay. This is a public hearing.
We have
That's
to
to set it
vote
for the
on-
public
Oh,
hearing.
wow.
Yes.
I know, I'm
Can
all
you
messed
just,
up
can
today.
you
I'm
just,
sorry.
We're
Mayor,
gonna
can you
house.
just
I
do
know,
all
and-
of them?
That's
and-
what
I'm
she
Yeah.
said.
right.
Just look at
Right.
them.
6, you're gonna show them
Right,
too?
yeah, this is 1016
Let
St.
me get
Jude.
something straight. We voting on one time,
We're
and
just
that's for
setting it for
everything.
all of them,
Right.
to
Yeah,
set them for
okay.
public
Just
hearing.
this is all around the whole.
And, okay, yeah, 1016 St.
St.
Jude.
All right, that's it right there. Now, this is the next one, which is 617
T.
Hopkins.
You show the lighter side.
Yeah, Yeah, but it's falling apart. And the back door, they won't board it, so 906 French.
When we have, can we, I know we can force them to board it up in there, Jimmy, but if they board it, they got a door and everything, we can't force them to lock it.
I haven't had any luck.
Cause I got one across the street from my store, I know you know where it belongs to. They had a rape there last Friday night, the little guy drugged a girl and then raped her last Friday night, and, the door's unlocked, it never locked, it stays unlocked.
I'm gonna have to see what I can do, but I don't have any funds to board them, you know.
But the property owner wouldn't board it?
And
And the next one is 724 20 Arpin.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second on the floor. These are all set for public hearing on March 17th. Do you have any objection? No objection, motion carries. And then we just have a couple of announcements. The next council meeting will be
Mayor,
on.
we
Yes.
still don't have no money available for demolition.
We have 20,000 in our budget.
Did y'all ever decide on?
We're still working on some of the demolitions right
I'm
now.
working on the list. I got 2 on the list that have asbestos.
Asbestos.
I have actually 3.
The one
And
on
if
Frederick and Walton, that thing been there.
that's
what,
got asbestos on it, if I
like
do.
6 years?
We was going by the worstest ones first, right?
Yeah, I gotta start choosing which one I'm gonna do. But I mean, if I do 2 of them, I'm gonna blow the budget.
Right. We
Scott,
need to vote on that.
how can we be forced to do something, you know? We force the laws on people when we demolish their homes, you know, we tell them they gotta repair their house or they're gonna lose it, and they don't have a choice. But yet we have a choice. If we don't have the money, we say, well, we don't have the money.
Well, ultimately, we put a lien back on the property, but they never collect the property back again, so as a practical matter, it
Oh, we
doesn't.
got so many liens on somebody's property right now, man. We could sell half of them, we'd be in good shape.
That's right.
You're right. Okay, the next council meeting will be held on Tuesday, February 3rd, and the groundbreaking ceremony for the Arminco Canal Drainage Project will be held on Tuesday, February the 12th, Thursday, February the 12th, 2015 at 2 p.m., and everyone is invited. We need a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Merrill, second by Mr. Lewis.
We trying to stay?